I got a couple of
Hello and welcome to. There we go. That's the sound I was waiting for. This is episode 38 of the Crafty Boys, and we're getting close to the holidays. So we've just been talking about the different advent calendars, the beer advent calendars that are out there, and just like Dave was just asking where to get it, the one that we picked up, myself and Alan, and so that might be the conversation we're talking about today. A little bit early, I think, but that's okay. I am Shane. I'm in Vancouver, and I'm going to toss it over to
Alan. Hi, I'm in Victoria, British Columbia, and just north of me is
Dave in Coax Valley.
And Locke is currently not here. The guy is currently in Ontario. We sent him the invite to join our little podcast. However,
he's
he's
probably
not
like fighting off a grizzly bear or something.
That's true. I mean,
that's something
Ontario is filled. Actually, it's probably a rabid moose, I would think.
A rabid moose? So he's like cornered in like a cabin in the woods by a rabid moose.
Most likely, because I really don't think there's anything more serious than a rabid moose.
Right.
No, there really isn't. You do not.
I think you need to see. I think you need to see a doctor about that. Go see an ophthalmologist.
Are you guys saying there's something wrong with me? I don't understand. So the beer this week.
Say anything.
The beer that I went to the dollar store and bought googly eyes. So the beer this week is the winter beer.
Beeracle. Like
I said,
it's
wrong.
a winter
Beeracle.
miracle, but instead of a miracle, it's a Beeracle, don't you?
I keep calling it a beersicle, and I just somehow think that's cooler. But this is the winter Beeracle winter ale. It is from one of our favorite breweries, Dead Frog. Now, Dead Frog has been around for a while. We've actually reviewed some of their beers, kind of. I don't think we've actually done a direct Beer Frog, but it... Sorry?
We've never done a Dead Frog.
No. I'm saying that we've done Dead Frog, kind of, because we've talked about some of the Dead Frog in the past, but we haven't actually reviewed a Dead Frog.
Okay, sure. Hey, whatever.
Connected to Beer Fest. I've brought it up.
Okay.
I know that I have. So there's been a few things because Dead Frog is one of those beers that is something that I particularly enjoy. I've had a bunch of their different beers, but of course, it's not a beer that I see too often in pubs or restaurants. It's usually when I'm at the liquor store. Now, maybe I'm just not going to the right places. You never know. But I was last week I was feeling a little nostalgic for winter. We were talking a lot about last week. Talking a lot about the after the show was done, we talked a lot about the different advent calendars that are available in BC, and I got really excited because last year was my first year of doing one, and I actually did a podcast specifically for that, and I enjoyed doing it. So I'm going to do it again this year, but of course, since we're doing this podcast, we're of course going to do it here as well. So anyway, point is that I was kind of feeling nostalgic and thought a winter ale was in order because last week I was at a pub that had a winter ale that I do not remember what it was, but it was good, and it just the whole nostalgia kicked up a notch because I was having a winter ale. So yeah, that's why I chose this one this week. And you guys also got the same one, right?
We did, or I did.
Yep.
Very good. I mean, Locke may not have got it, but as long as we did, that makes because if you've watched the show at all in the last few months, sometimes we run into beers that are plentiful in certain areas of the province and not so much in others. So we've had to make do.
The word you're looking for, actually.
Sorry?
I think frequently is the word you're looking for, actually.
Shut up! We've got to look professional, man. But this week I'm very ecstatic. Not ecstatic that Locke is in here because he's in Ontario. I'm curious what he would have come up with. But us three West Coast-based people have managed to get it. So let's all open up, boys. I'm of course opening up with my Bally penis.
Yeah. I'm
you
not
know
using...
funny? What? Every time I actually bring up the Bally penis, I always do this first. I try that, and it's so silly because I should be going this way. Anyway. Don't ask me why. I don't quite understand. Okay, first, before anything else, before we do the pour, what does it smell like?
It smells like beer.
It smells like a candy cane and undershorts. No, I'm serious. Like the first whiff I got, it kind of
Do you
sounded.
smell undershorts? And who calls them undershorts? Seriously.
I do.
Underwear.
No, I'm serious. I kind of got a whiff of candy cane first, and then underpants. So I'm not saying
getting that at all.
I'm not saying that's a terrible thing. I'm just saying that was kind of what I was smelling. So, all right, do the pour, boys. Let's see your glasses, and let's pour.
All right, pouring. Ooh, it's nice and dark.
That I was not expecting.
Pouring really nice.
Wow. Haven't seen one like this, maybe ever.
A warm winter ale with a rich malt base. Actually, I think that's what I'm smelling. I think I'm smelling the malt.
Yeah.
Which for some reason apparently to me smells like underwear. And all natural flavors of maple and pecan. The winter ale flavors are complemented by a deep and complex malt base with hints of dark chocolate and caramel, which to me makes total sense. A celebration of all the good things winter brings. Complex beers, warm fires, close family, and good friends. And if you guys want to know, here's something we don't actually do on this show. We don't talk about. Now, this is when we started this program. We didn't really talk a lot about the technical aspects of each of the beers. Like we didn't talk about IBUs or the type of hops or the malts, and I think we should start doing that because. Somebody sent an email to me the other day saying, "What was the IBU of that beer?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." So there you go. So I just want to point this out because this is usually on the bottle. This is something we don't necessarily. You don't have to do a whole lot of research. If you're a connoisseur of beers like us, us that we are, it's on the bottle.
What's in this beer?
It's in the beer too. But here you go. So you can see like the hops are Centennial and Wilmette. You'll see the malts that are being used here. And
Two-row, Munich, chocolate, and special B. Important to note, chocolate malts does not mean that it tastes like chocolate. That just indicates the color of the malt is very similar to chocolate.
Exactly. And down at the very bottom here, and this is very important, the IBU. Now, the IBU on this one is actually 24, which is kind of mid-range-ish, because I've seen some beers that have, teens for the IBU.
So what does the IBU mean, Shane?
International Beer
Units. That's the International Beer Units? Actually, Dave, I'd like you to explain International Beer Units. Go.
Shit.
You dug yourself a hole, dude. Dig out.
Okay.
We're waiting.
So
IBU is International Beer Units.
So this happened between World War I and II, and the Europeans, in particular, were happy but concerned about the Americans coming on the scene, in the world. So they got together with the Americans, and they all decided, okay, so this whole beer thing is gonna be huge, in whatever 75 years time or something. So
You're so full of shit. Keep going. I'm interested. Keep going.
I don't know if I can keep this going. Okay, so they had this. It was like the Council of Yalta, right? That was kind of it it was a behind the scenes thing. You know, everybody was making out in public like, oh, this is all, you know, some big political war thing. But no, it was actually about the fucking beer, man, because that was way more important. So
Tell us more.
all this. Yeah,
Would
war
you
is
like to
boring.
really know what IBU means? Because I kind of do know, but that's okay. You were speaking first, so I was kind of letting you run with it. Although I have to say, your story is way more interesting than mine. For those out there who don't know what an IBU is, now essentially, what the IBU does, it actually tells you how bitter the beer is, and 24 is low on that scale. Now we're talking like IBUs for things like, I don't know, Bud Light, Coors, those kinds of beers that in Canada aren't really beer. They run about a level 10. They run about 10 on the IBU scale. So their bitterness is really light. So basically what it means is that if you were to drink this beer, you could drink a whole lot of it and it wouldn't bother you. Now, this, of course, as I pointed out earlier, this is, where is it again? It's down here. The IBU is 24. Now, the IBU for 24, that's kind of, I mean, it's still low, but it's also, we've actually had on the show some brown ales and red ales, and they're kind of in that zone for the level of bitterness. But to give you an example of where bitterness goes, Imperial IPAs, which we've had on the show initially, 10 episodes back or so, or at least Locke did, because those are his favorite beers. Those are topping out at like 100 on the IBU scale. Oh. So they're about 100 and higher, essentially. For us here, my favorite beer has always been Guinness. It's kind of an addiction of mine. If I were to say, if there's one beer you could drink for the rest of your life and no others, Guinness. There's no question, no fight, no second thoughts. That's what I have. But Guinness actually is sort of around 40, 45, depending on how the batch went. So that's essentially what IBU means. And I've only in the last couple of weeks kind of really thought, the last couple of episodes, kind of been thinking that we should really talk about this kind of stuff. Because we've sort of been talking a little bit sort of anecdotally about how the beers are that we like. And IBU, I think, is really important because I've noticed on my searches that the IBU rating has really started popping up on labels for probably the last 12 months or so. Beforehand, I don't remember seeing them. Maybe they were still there, I just never noticed. But in the last little while, IBU has really been kind of a rating system that's giving people an idea of sort of how bitter the beer is they're about to drink. So enough of that. 24 is the IBU for this beer this week. If you guys have ever had a winter ale before, now the winter ales that I've had have always had sort of a sweet tone to them. And I'm talking like Lions Bay and, but more importantly, oh my lord, I'm forgetting.
I think of the Lions. What am I thinking? The Granville Island one, right?
That's the one.
Yes.
And that one has a flavor like there's mint in it or something, but
yeah.
it's you know that yeah.
I don't know if it's mint, but it's something very distinctive.
Yeah. So and that's kind of what I think about for winter ales, and I don't actually know what this one is going to taste like. I know what it smells like.
Well, I've already had some. It's good. You know what the smell is like? You know how you were trying to identify the smell out of the bottle?
Yeah.
It reminded me, like, I don't know if when you were a kid, I mean, my dad used to drink beer. His beer was Labatt Blue. You know, I mean, there wasn't a lot else that you could drink in Canada here. So, you know, I would smell his Labatt Blue bottles, and that's the smell that I'm getting from this. But it tastes absolutely nothing like Labatt Blue.
Totally not. I mean,
this is meaty. This has some good flavor to it, and it's got some body. It's bold and refreshing. I really like this, and I will say this for full disclosure that in the past I have not been the biggest fan of Dead Frog Brewery. They haven't been bad, but they haven't done anything that's really sort of stood out to me as being great. This is good stuff right here. They hit
I
the
gotta say,
nail on the head.
collect experiences, not things, is the Dead Frog motto. It seems. I gotta say, I mean, it kind of tastes like the other, like the one that I had the other day, but this is not. I don't know. There's something about this that I mean. Here's the one thing about for this winter ale. It's darker. The other ones are not. They're more browns, that kind of thing. Um, so yeah.
I'm really enjoying this.
What
I would
about you,
buy it
Dave? What do you
again.
think?
Hmm. I like it. It's part of me is like, I don't know. It's kind of bitter, but
Really?
yeah. But remember, um, I'm new to well, damn near everything we're drinking here, so my taste buds are getting an education, is what it is.
I mean, from my experience, most of these beers, the winter ales, tend to have. It's like they threw like maple syrup into them or something to kind of give them that
Well, they might
holiday
have.
taste. Is this one actually? Is this maple syrup as well?
No, it probably
Malted
isn't.
barley
But
hops used pecan. No, it's the pecans really that are the biggest thing because um, in our fridge we have raw pecans. So I eat pecans every other day, kind of thing. Because it's when we try and put nuts into our diet, that's Allie's favorite thing. But I can't say it's the pecans I'm tasting, but there's definitely something related to that. That I don't know. It's got that light sweetness that shows up when you have something that may not necessarily be sweet, but enough concentration, you get that sort of sweet taste to them.
Mhm.
So
I
I mean,
think
it's
it's
like
just
if you eat a
it's just
raw
the sugars
pecan.
in the malts. It's
Exactly. The combination makes them actually work. So yeah.
no, this is really
But
good.
I'm kind of curious about what you thought, Dave, because you're not the one who. I mean, out of the four of us, when Locke is here, you tend to be the sort of the brand new person, which you just said earlier about this is brand new to your taste buds. So,
Mm.
what is your sort of what's your overall kind of would you drink this again? Is kind of what I'm getting for going
Yeah,
forward.
yeah. It's kind of neat. I'm noticing, and maybe this is part of my education. I'm kind of noticing the way the flavor changes as it goes down. It's neat because you get, I don't know, there's this really nice, like the sweetness that you guys are talking about, kind of the maple, yummy. It's not really in your face by any means, which is nice. Um, and it has this sort of slightly bitter finish to it, when it's finally gone from your tongue. So it's sort of it's I don't know how to describe it best. I guess it's kind of like this sort of exploration, in taste. That sounds weird, but that's what it is.
Now, hey, Alan, what other beers have we had by Dead Frog in the past? I know that we've had some at Beer Fest, but I don't know. I'm talking about not just for the podcast. I'm talking about like in life in general.
Oh God. You know what? To be honest, I've had a few, most of them at Beer Fest. I don't remember specifically what they were, um, because it was in an advanced part of the Beer Fest, and by then I'm not remembering a lot. But we've definitely tried a lot of Dead Frog stuff in the past. I just can't remember exactly what ones they were. But thank you for putting me on the spot like that. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, cheers.
Dick.
So overall, all three of us kind of give it a thumbs up. This is
Oh
the
yeah,
winter
I give it a
Beeracle
big
winter
thumbs up.
big thumbs up.
You know
The
what? You know what
winter
I really
Beeracle.
notice? You know what I
What?
really notice about it? if I hold up my glass to the light, I actually can't see through it. Usually with a beer, it's translucent. You can kind of see, if you're looking through it, you can see your hand on the other side, right? With this one here, I can't do that. I like that. It tells me this is something that's, they put a lot of stuff into it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I agree because that's what I was saying earlier about some of the other winter ales that I've had. The Granville Island one probably being the most often since I live in Vancouver, and Granville Island's like a hop, skip, and a jump from where I live. But it's definitely it's nowhere near as dark as this at all. So I gotta say, I'm a fan of Dead Frog anyway because I like their product. But this is the first time I've had a winter ale from them. I'm not sure if this winter ale has been around before, like if it's been around previous years.
I've not seen it before, so I'm thinking this might be a first year, but I'm not an expert on that.
Well, I'm looking at the bottle. I don't see any indication like 5 years running or anything like that. So basically, in my opinion, I think that this beer is definitely something you should have. But like any dark beer, make sure that it's cold before you consume it because, from my experience, dark beers tend to be a little. I mean, even though we're low on the IBU scale, they tend to be They tend to be less tasty. That's the way I'll describe it. They're not as good. Kind of like the cucumber beer we had a few weeks back. Drinking it not cold, it was pretty awful. But drinking it really cold, it was awesome. Especially when we were considering that it's a seasonal for the summer, and it was way better cold. And I'm glad I actually had that experience because when I had it the first time, it wasn't that cold. Like it was somebody had just bought it, they just thrown it in the fridge. It was at a party. It was election day in Canada, and they brought it out and they're like, "Hey, let's try this." And I said, "Great." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" And they're like, and they couldn't even finish their bottle. They were like, they got halfway through and they're like, "Yeah, I'm dumping the rest out." But then we did it. I think a week after or a couple weeks later. And I made sure it was really cold at that point, and it was a different experience entirely. Especially when we made the weird discovery of drinking it out of, the top of a bottle like this was okay, but when we poured it into the glass, the smells of the cucumber and everything else just made it improved the experience entirely. So
yeah,
I give it up for that beer. And I'm sorry that I thought it was crap at first, but the second experience was not terrible at all.
Well, it just goes to show that everybody deserves a second chance, right?
Exactly, and which kind of made me sad about the Piper's Pale Ale from from Vancouver Island Brewery, because it's a beer that I was very familiar with, and I had it for who knows how much I've drank of it over the years, but then to kind of return to it a number of weeks ago. And we were so disappointed. However, I'd like to try that one again to kind of give it a second viewing, and see if it was just that particular batch, yeah. Anyway, enough about the beer. We like it. We think the Beeracle is great from Dead Frog Brewery.
Yeah.
Pick it up if you are thinking about trying something for the winter. And I know that Alan just sent a link to us.
Well, just so before we get on that, we did start off the podcast talking about the Advent calendar. So maybe we should talk about that a little bit. So there are a few Advent calendars available. There's one that Phillips makes called the Snow Case. And then there's the one that we have decided to get.
I'm almost ready.
This is from Peril 49 and from Central City Brewing.
Central City, right here.
It's a case of 24 bottles of beer.
It's fucking heavy.
With special. Heavy. Can you show the special things on the top, the holes on the top with the numbers?
Right here. There you go. So it's
Don't drop
actually
it.
a
An
train.
advent calendar.
Hang on. Well, it's actually a route. You start over here, number 1. This is station 1, and then you move through to 24, and the final stage, the final stop, is right there. Now, basically, it's like because you can see the train on it and everything, the little rails and stuff. So last year I tried this. I did the Parallel 49 Central City one last year. It was not as cool as this one. It was kind of a. Actually, I can show you right away. I'm gonna put this down. This is bloody heavy. But last year I did the same one. Oh shoot! I'm dropping stuff on the floor. But this is the tops from the one last year. Allison, for Christmas last year, after I finished drinking them all, just put holes in them and made them into basically a wreath.
Well, that's kind of a cool thing.
So, but this, I gotta say, this year's is way different. They've got sort of a theme to it, and I think that was because they knew there were a bunch of other people wanting to join in the Advent calendar race. However, at least in British Columbia, we really only have 2 competitors: the Central City Parallel 49 and the Snowcase, which is from Phillips. So
Phillips.
Now
there is a third one, but it's not being sold in BC this year. It's being sold in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario and Quebec. But
and what is it?
I can't remember what it's called. It's sort of like it's every beer in it. So all 24 are from a different brewery. It would normally be sold here, but for whatever reason, it's not being sold in BC this year.
Well, that's just lame, and they really need to get serious about their beer.
Yes. So we have the Snowcase from Phillips, and we've got the what's it called? Crossing.
This is the Craft Crossing calendar.
Craft Crossing from Parallel 49 and Central City. Now, what's interesting about the one from Parallel 49 and Central City, the Craft Crossing, is that in the 24 bottle case, 12 of them, that's half of the case, are beers that are brand new that you've never tried before and will not be able to get through any other means. So if you want to try those 12 beers, you have to get Craft Crossing, which is interesting. Even more interesting is the Snowcase, the Phillips Snowcase, which in past years has only included Phillips beers that you could get anywhere else. I mean, like, you go in a day and you pull out a Blue Buck. Blue Buck is great, but if you've got like an advent calendar, you want to be surprised. You want something different. So
yeah, exactly. Because that's what happened to me last year, where I got Blue Buck, I think, 3 times in my Snowcase. Or actually, it wasn't called the Snowcase last year. I don't remember what it was called. But the tops look like this. But I was kind of disappointed because there was definitely... I was expecting some new stuff, but again, it was the very first Advent calendar I'd done for beer.
But this year, Phillips has actually brewed 11 new beers specifically for the Snowcase. And that is to try to keep up with what Parallel 49 and Central City are brewing. So, no matter which one you get, and I suggest that if you want to get one, you get one quickly because they tend to sell out very quickly. In fact, the Snowcase in Victoria, I believe, has sold out completely, which is fairly normal. You have the opportunity to try out a whole schwack of new beers that you're probably not going to be able to try anywhere else, unless they're so successful that they mass produce them on their own after Christmas or something. But
True.
Yeah.
No, I got to say that my experience last year, for me, it was actually more of a, because about this time last year, I was thinking about doing a video blog, but I wasn't sure what to do because I do a lot better when I'm doing stuff that has some sort of format to it, so that I have rules that I have to apply, I have to apply to the thing, and then I move ahead better that way. And And that was actually, it was Allison's suggestion that, hey, why don't you do a beer advent calendar? And then I got really excited about it, and then I started recording, which was great, but some of the times I drank the beer earlier in the day and then would talk about it 5 hours, 6 hours later. So, but this year is going to be different. And we're going to do it on this show, too.
Nice.
But yeah, so essentially, it was just kind of nice to have something that I was looking forward to. That I'm going to drink a beer today. It'll be great. But at least I had some idea that the beer I was going to have might be something new and might be something different. But then, yeah, it suffered last year because I got Blue Buck 3 times, which that was kind of lame. Like I got it early on, then I got it maybe like number 2 or 3, and then I got it number like 6, and then not until like 18 or 19 that I got it again. But by that point, I was kind of let down because I thought, not that I was expecting brand new beers to be brewed like they're doing this year, but it was definitely, I was hoping for something a little more rare, something that maybe they'd done, in a small batch.
You're expecting something special. There's nothing wrong with that.
So, and I gotta say, Dead Frog, if you guys could get off your butts and make one, I would totally get yours too.
And, you're paying with these advent calendars. It basically is a case of 2 for, right?
But
so
a
how
little
much
bit
is
more. There's definitely a little bit more to it. Like you're paying for 24 beer, but a little bit more.
I know, but I'm saying that if nobody's brewing anything special, why are you paying the extra amount?
Yeah, you may as well get like a 2 for of one type of beer that you
a
really
Blue Buck, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or go into it with a bunch of friends. Everybody buys like a 6-pack, and you all divvy it up, and you have like 24 varieties.
Now, the interesting thing I saw this year, which I gather was a thing last year, and Dave might be excited about this, was not beer, but whiskey and
gin.
Bourbon.
And gin too.
Well, so it's like you get like and I'm not now. Granted, I don't know exactly what you do get, but I imagine they're small bottles.
Yeah, they're very small.
But yeah, it's an advent calendar for hard liquors. So, Dave, your thoughts?
That
sounds cool.
I would be down with that. Definitely.
Because I think that would be kind of cool. Because sometimes when you're at home and you're relaxing and doing nothing much of anything, sometimes you want to have a beer, which is usually my preference. But sometimes you kind of want, I could just use a shot of something that will take, relax me a little bit, and that definitely can be, something like. My preference would be bourbon, but that's just me. I want to talk about the stuff now that we are going to be talking about today. Alan, your link is brilliant. Do you want to talk? I know nothing about this, and it is amazing.
Well, you know what? I didn't know anything about it an hour ago either.
Why don't you explain what you know about it so far?
Okay, I know very little. So has everybody heard about a Keurig or Tassimo? You get the coffee pods and you put it in the thing and out comes coffee into your mug. Okay, so some guys in Seattle invented this thing, and it's a Kickstarter for basically the same thing as a Keurig, but for beer. So you have this machine, and the machine, I guess, costs about $500 US. And you get these beer pods that you put into it, and it sits on your countertop, and you brew your beer, and it comes with like a 5-liter keg, and you put it in the keg where it ferments, and then you've got 5 liters of beer that you have made at home. Now, it's not as instant as brewing a cup of coffee with a Keurig. You have to allow it to ferment. But you still have basically the ability to brew beer easily and automatically at home. Plus, this has actually been supported by a number of large craft breweries, including Rogue. Um, who else here?
Mad Tree, which is the only reason I know Mad Tree is I was at a brewery in Portland about a year and a half ago, and I liked their logo. And of course, if you've been to Portland, Oregon before, you will know that they've got a lot of breweries there. And it was just one of the ones that I noticed because I don't remember what it was specifically, but the fact that they're supporting it, and Rogue, because we've talked about Rogue
Rogue,
before.
Flying Monkeys, which is what Lockhart was drinking last week.
Right. Yeah.
Brasserie Dieu de Ciel, which we had at Beer Fest, and we actually really enjoyed that one. They're supporting it. Yeah, I mean it seems actually kind of expensive. I mean the unit itself is about $500 US.
559.
559.
But
And then
that's only if you've supported them to a certain degree. If you want to buy it brand new, if you want to buy one of the machines for yourself, it looks like they are spending around. Now this is a variety because they're combining a lot of the different stuff together, but it looks like the average price is going to be about $1,000 for the machines.
So you got to be like a huge beer lover in order to get this. Now, but here's the rub. The beer that you brew, if you use their included dispensing equipment, will last in the keg for several months. So, I mean, you're going to be spending a lot to brew this beer, but you brew it yourself. You can. There's also a social aspect to this, where you can go on their website and actually make your own recipes, and turn it into a pod that they will send you, and other people can try. And you can actually make money off of it. So you can actually market your own pods.
That's pretty cool.
Which is interesting.
So it looks like they're gunning for just not the home brewer to home drink to enjoy themselves. They actually want people to be like, if you do this, you could do this, that, So
if you come up with a recipe, you could come up with a recipe that's so fantastic that everybody is going to buy it, and you could become a millionaire.
Exactly. So they actually are giving people the ability to make some sort of what are they calling it? The brew marketplace. So you essentially could resell beer that you make with their device. Now it's still a ways away. The delivery for most of their people that are actually supporting the project is April of next year, and who knows where it's going to go beyond that, because there are definitely some. When you have a Kickstarter, I'm not familiar with them quite a bit, so if you have a Kickstarter, there's definitely going to be some things that are going to work out where there was a coffee product that came out late last year, and it was great, but once they had a ton of people actually using it, they got feedback, and they were able to improve the product later on. So like 6 months after they launched, they made some modifications that improved whatever was wrong. I don't remember exactly what it was, but so I could definitely see that happening with this. So, but yeah, some of the things they're asking for are like $1,700, $2,000. So that you can
imagine that the price will go down once it's like mass produced.
Totally, without question. But some of these packages, but here's the thing about it, is they're not actually really selling the device, the actual keg, by itself without anything else. So the keg itself, or the device itself, the lowest price the prices are a bit lower, but they are definitely around $600 is kind of the goal line, I think. But if you buy 3 of them, you can, of course can get, that's for about $1,700, and then of course they're calling something called the Pico Developer, which is actually what's really tweaked my interest. Where you're actually getting a Pico machine, but you're also getting some other stuff in a different machine to help you develop different types of beer. So that's kind of cool too. So who knows where exactly they'll land. Once the project launches, once they get going, the price can of course come down because it looks like just from the photographs they have different styles of the machine, like branded differently or different finishes, stuff like that. So who knows where that's going to settle out.
And the pods look to be about $20 each. So $20 for 5 liters of beer is actually a pretty good price.
Yeah, exactly. Since you get the ability to like tweak it and make it your own, there's definitely a few things that are going to happen. Dave, would you actually buy something like this? Because I know now, granted, you're on a beer podcast, but you are actually here for A, because you're cool, but two, you were actually, when I first met you, you hated beer. And you have grown to like beer. I'm not going to say love, but you've liked beer a lot more in the past, say, 5 or 6 years or so. Definitely, probably less than that. Like in the last 3-4 years, you've gained an appreciation for beer.
Yes.
But if you were starving or wasting away in a desert, and you had a choice of, liquid diarrhea and beer, you might still think about it.
Well, no, I'm not sure anybody in that situation would actually think about it very long, really. But it is true that, yes, I have developed more of an appreciation for beers over the last few years, definitely.
Well, because the amount of time I've known Alan and I, when we first met, were very young. We weren't able to drink beer. We weren't old enough. But as time went on,
but we still did it anyway.
Yeah, well, we drank beer, and we sort of became, especially once we hit about 30-ish, maybe 25, we started to get a little more specific about the types of beer we had, because I remember sort of the first beer I had in a social situation, and it was awful, and I fell asleep. Alan, you will relate.
Oh yeah, in a bar. No less, like not like a pub, but I mean a bar with young girls and everything dancing and stuff, and like boom, boom, boom,
and then there's Shane sitting at a table, everyone else going. I passed right out. I don't know if it was the beer or if I was bored, one of the two. So yeah, I mean that's why I think your particular attitude, or not attitude, your particular opinion is very important.
Your attitude stinks, buddy.
Your attitude stinks, man. But seriously,
you're off the case.
You're off the case. Turn your badge and your gun. But you're not somebody who appreciated beer years ago. You were somebody that actually learned or began to experience beer differently as you got older. And that's why I think your opinion is important, because it's like, I like Scotch, but this beer is really shitty. 10 years go by, I like Scotch, but this beer is not bad. That's kind of what I'm saying, right? Not that you were a Scotch drinker. I'm just saying that you might have had some other interest in.
No, the Scotch is new for me too.
But I gotta say though, I kind of want to support the Pico. The Pico, by the way, the product's called Pico. Did we actually mention that? I don't even know.
No, I don't think we did.
It's called the Pico. It's from a company called Pico Brew Inc. And they're putting this Kickstarter together. Now, of course, I'm assuming that everyone knows what a Kickstarter is, and I have a fly. Get out of here! It's too late in the year for you. But I'm assuming
I really want to support it too. I mean, it looks like a pretty skookum machine.
It's probably one of the first Kickstarters where my instant reaction is I'm supporting it. Not. What do I use this? No. Right out of the gate, I'm like, yes, I'm doing it. But here's the thing, like, if it is a product that is potentially something that might revolutionize kind of what Alan was doing a number of years ago with home brewing, this is somewhere around that same sort of thing.
You know what it does? It takes the home brewing process from something that seems like a daunting process to something that anybody could do. And there
Exactly.
there has been tools in the past that have purported to do the same kind of thing. I'm thinking like the beer machine or Mr. Beer or something like that, where you get like this plastic keg looking thing and you put in the mix in a pot with some water and you get some really crappy beer with it. But I think with this particular machine, because it uses actual ingredients, and it's not using um, malt extracts, which is what all these beer kits are based on malt extracts, which is a problem. This thing looks to use actual ingredients and does everything automatically. So you put it in, it does. I'm assuming you don't have to do any sparging with it or anything like that. So you just put in your milled grains. It takes out the sugars out of it and does all that for you, so you don't have to. All you do is you let it do its thing, kind of like a bread machine. You let it do its thing. You rack it to the fermenter that comes with it, and then put it into the keg, and you're done.
I gotta say, you've sold me on the product just describing it that way. I mean, to me, it's so simple. So yeah, support the Pico. I think it's craft beer at home, Pico Brew Inc.
Peekaboo? What?
I just said Peekaboo, and I meant Pico Brew. And I will point out that right now they're asking for $200,000 for their project, and they've already got 963,951 as of this moment.
Wow.
Which is, and this actually leads me to the weird, ironic sort of thing, is that the other link that I had for today, which I actually picked up last night, is the return of a television show. Now, this is not about beer. This is about man stuff. Bring back Mystery Science Theater 3000, which is also a Kickstarter. Now, if anybody doesn't know what Mystery Science Theater 3000 is, essentially, it's a television show back in the day, and we're talking probably 90s, where the show basically was a dude living in a space station with a couple of sentient robots that talked about movies. Bad movies. Really bad movies. And it was fun and hilarious. It was part improv, part script. It was really great, and it was very low budget, and it was just something that became... When it was on, it was popular, but when it was canceled, it became more popular to the point where they actually had a theatrical movie. Now, I'm assuming everyone here on the podcast has seen at least one episode, but if not, the best part about it is that I saw this yesterday because they launched their Kickstarter yesterday, asking for $2 million, and within I think it's just over 24 hours, so about 30 hours or so, 36 hours, they've already got $1.3 million supporting for the project, which kind of points out, and this is kind of that switch for how television used to work to how television will work in the future, because we're kind of in that transitional point. But Mystery Science Theater is kind of one of those things where it was basically like a cable network, sort of, not a cable network, a public access kind of thing. I don't necessarily know what, anyway. Basically, it was kind of public access level, and they didn't have anyone telling them what to do, and they just kind of did what they thought was beneficial for the show. And then they got a bunch of money later on. They became sort of a bigger thing, and then the bigger people with the money cut them off. So that sucks. But at least for me, people that I know that have enjoyed the show in the past never forgot about it. So, because it was so good, it was so incredibly fun to watch. People basically rip into really terrible films and these are films that were a long time ago. We're talking about anyone involved wasn't born yet, and the question is, were their parents born yet? A lot of them not so much. So, the films that were out, or their parents were really young. So these films are really great. They have all kinds of cool things going on, and it's really entertaining to watch. It just tickles me to any level that, in less than 3 days, they're almost at their, they're more than halfway to their goal, which kind of points out that the people that watched it, the people that supported it back in the day, are willing to support it now. So like home brewing, Pico, you could of course do that and then watch Mystery Science Theater 3000, hopefully when it returns. And I also want to point out that I had, if you guys probably haven't watched the video for the Kickstarter, but I have. And they actually have said that if they get up to almost $6 million, they will be able to produce a full season of stuff, not just
Wow.
6 or 7 shows. So this, of course, harkens back to things like Reading Rainbow, which earlier this year was funded to the tune of like $1 bazillion to come back. As well as a couple other shows that were basically, kind of the Reading Rainbow thing, supported by things like PBS or supported by smaller broadcasters and things like that. But now the people get to say whether or not you get to homebrew or whether or not you get to watch a really awesome show that kicks ass. Because the big hurdle for them is, even though a lot of the films that they're talking about were made in the 40s and 50s and 60s, they still have to pay for the rights for them because they're not just talking about them. They're actually taking the thing they talk about and turning that into a product as well. And I know I have another podcast I talk about copyright all the time on, but the reality is that if you want to talk about something, use clips of it. In this case, in Mystery Science Theater, they show the entire film interspersed with little tiny skits that they do themselves, but you actually have to pay for those rights. If you want to actually resell basically a copy of the film, it can get pricey. Some of the films, since they're so old, are probably not that expensive, but what if they wanted to do a show from the 80s? What if they wanted to do, like, I don't know, Legend? If you haven't seen Legend, you'll understand.
Yes.
Or sorry, if you have seen Legend, you'll understand. But that's the thing, is that this is kind of cool, and I think it's kind of a neat thing. And I was surprised. I have read nothing about it until yesterday. So bring back Mystery Science Theater 3000 on Kickstarter, Pico Home Brewing on Kickstarter, and the Crafty Boys also on Kickstarter. Give us $1 million and we'll spend it on
Hey,
booze.
we should do that.
And spend it on booze.
So we can like make like a kick-ass set or something.
Yeah, because I mean, to be honest, in this particular show, we're doing it for the love of this stuff here that we really like to talk about. We've talked about this kind of stuff for years, and you were pestering me for a long time. Hey, we should do something cool. Hey, we should do something about beer. Hey, we should do something about beer. Are we going to do that thing about beer yet? And we started doing this show back in February of, and the reason I know this, back in February of 2015, because I've currently been doing some behind the scenes stuff, reorganizing how the tech works, but we're still doing it, and that's really important because this is episode 38 of something that we're not getting paid for, we're not making any money for. We're doing it for the sake of doing it because we love to do it anyway. And
Having
quite
said
honestly,
that, we would like to get paid for it.
Oh,
so if
I'm
anybody
not saying
out
no
there
to
would like
that.
to sponsor us, we'd be totally
Hey,
on
Dead
board.
Frog! I noticed Dead Frog tweeted about us, and because
did?
Alan sent somebody tweeted about our show today.
Nice.
But the reality is, though, that we do this for the love of it. But hey, if you want to give us money, we're not going to say no, because if you want to give us $1 million, Dead Frog beer is the best beer ever. If you drink anything else, you are going to die horribly and burn in hell. I'll see that in their ad campaign next week. But essentially, yeah, I mean, but the reality is, and this is what I'm talking about, is that stuff like Mystery Science Theater, stuff like Pico, those are people that are, I mean, I can't say for Pico specifically, because I don't know them. Wink, wink. But the reality is that somebody at some point said, you know what would be cooler if we could do this? And this is something I would like to do. I wonder if other people would like to do it too. And that's kind of where these sorts of ideas come from, where Mystery Science Theater 3000 was a completely just, let's goof off and make fun of films that are really bad. And, we'll throw a couple of robots and puppets in. It'd be kind of funny, right? And that's what they did. And, of course, people responded to it. So, I mean, how can you not argue with them getting a whole ton of money already very soon into their thing? So, I mean, and same thing for the Pico thing. I mean, they're asking for 200 grand, and they've gone way over that.
Oh
So
yeah.
somebody sat down and said, it's going to cost about $200,000 to make this product a reality, and the community said, hello, more, and that's the nice thing about stuff like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and insert a gazillion other ones out there.
So
We're
so let
able
me
to
ask
make
you
these
this:
ideas real.
how much is Kickstarter making off of that?
Kickstarter and Indiegogo, I think, if I remember correctly, which I'm gonna mess this up, but they take about 10 to 20%. It depends.
So
Here's
in
the thing
other
about
words,
it.
they're making a killing.
Well, they're gonna make a lot, but the reality is, though, you got to remember. I'm not sure. I can't speak for Kickstarter. Most of my experience was Indiegogo, but for clients that have had done, there's about been 4 or 5 of them so far.
Hmm.
Um, If you start a campaign to raise funds on Indiegogo, and this is going to become an Indiegogo commercial, but you can do it on your own. You can learn what they have available on their website to make your stuff successful. But if you actually phone them up and say, hey, I need help, they give you that help for free. They actually have a bunch of people, a ton of people there, that have had so much experience with Indiegogo campaigns that they know how campaigns work. They know what sells, they know what doesn't sell, they know what things you can do to improve your chances of actually reaching your goal. But they do that for nothing. And I imagine Kickstarter has something similar. I don't know because I've never used them for that. But Indiegogo is Canadian based and is kind of has some support there. So um, there you go. So basically, if you have a dream of some sort, like making awesome beer, or making a silly little television program, or building the next cure for cancer, you could probably use this to be able to fund at least part of what you're trying to do. So I got to say that if you give the power
Dave's
to
back.
the internet, hey Dave, he's back. If you give the power to the people that are actually wanting the thing you're wanting to create, there is definitely some benefit in that. There's definitely some reward that you get out of that because you'll be able not to be able to just get the funding. You'll be able to find an audience, which is really important. Because who cares? If you had $1 million, you make a product nobody gives a shit about, then forget it. But this kind of system definitely has some benefits in being able to find people that actually want to do what you want to do. I mean, and here's the other thing too, and this is actually one reason why I like Indiegogo a little better than Kickstarter, and I'm really nerding out right now, but bear with me, because I have beer. Mmm,
I
yummy,
don't
yummy beer.
anymore. So
You drank it all
I
already?
drank it all. It's all gone. Wow.
Is it all gone?
It's all
Totally
gone.
empty?
I kind of want more.
Well, actually, that is something to be said about this beer. Is that it's actually something you're like, I'm out. I'm going to the store. I'll be right back.
Um,
Um,
it's 7.5%. I'm not going anywhere.
you have a wife, right? Get her to drive you. Um, but the reality is that this kind of stuff is it. The one thing about sorry, I was going to say something negative about Kickstarter. Was there was an issue early on where uh, the ability for people to find campaigns that didn't work was hidden from anyone who was using the site. So if you actually wanted to support something, but then you thought, but what about other people that have made campaigns that are similar? You couldn't find them anywhere. They were hidden from searches. They were hidden from everything. So
Mm.
any failures, any campaigns that weren't successful, were hidden from the public. That's changed since, but I'm saying that was kind of a bad choice because I think honestly that people wanting to do something like this could actually learn from campaigns that didn't work because they'd be able to look at them and kind of go, well, this one didn't have, whatever they said didn't make sense or whatever they said didn't seem to be something that people would want to support or like, I think this is a great thing. Make bubbles for children. Yay, yay, yay. Nazis are awesome. And I really think the bubbles are cool too. Like that just would be totally insane, right? So, but if you couldn't find that, if you couldn't actually see that kind of reality with campaigns that failed, um, how are you going to learn otherwise? Which is why I sort of gravitate towards Indiegogo, in that they didn't, at least from my knowledge anyway, they never seemed to do that. They seemed to say that, well, these campaigns didn't work out, they didn't get funded because of whatever reason. And the reason is really up to you. Maybe it's something that people didn't want. But also, if you call them and you actually contact them, they do help you right away. They're like, yes, totally. Well, how much are you going to charge for this? Nothing, because we get money anyway. But if you want help, but the weird thing is they don't actually advertise that. They don't. That was the weird component. On 3 of the different campaigns that eventually did ask Indiegogo for help, they were surprised that they could get help. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just like how the way they advertise their services. I'm not entirely sure. But at the end of the day, I still have a lot of beer, and Alan doesn't.
Bastard.
Way to rub it in.
So, anything else you guys have run into this past week? I mean, it's been a whole 7 days since we've last spoken. Maybe there's some news or excitement or anything else other than the stuff we've already talked about?
No. The only other thing that
My life is completely void of any adventure.
Well, the only other thing that I've noticed, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it's taken this long for it to happen, but Betamax was finally discontinued by Sony this week.
So that was a real thing.
That was a real thing. They actually...
I saw the headline and I thought, what the hell?
And I think the reason for that is because Betamax, because it was so superior to VHS, even though the marketplace, the consumer marketplace, didn't really support Betamax over VHS. But Betamax was technically superior. So it was used a lot in broadcast applications. But since they've gone to like I guess a digital broadcasting format, they didn't even need Betamax. So Betamax has been completely, as of this week, discontinued. Sony is not manufacturing players anymore or tapes in the Betamax format as of this week.
Okay, I have to read to you a few tweets about this particular story. Betamax actually still exists? Time to pull out the old Laserdisc, I guess.
Which I still have, by the way.
Does it still work?
I don't know. It's in a box. I haven't used it in a while, but I hope it still works.
Hands up to those who thought Betamax had stopped manufacture 400 years ago.
400 years ago.
Bring back Betamax. #unlikely protests. In the late 80s, I asked the video shop guy, what are your other Betamax customers watching? He replied, you're my only Betamax customer. And my favorite is Betamax outlasted HD, DVD, and Laserdisc.
Oh, yeah. and almost Blu-ray.
And almost Blu-ray. And Blu-ray, technically, from what I understand, if you were to follow any of the pundits of this sort of technology, Blu-ray is the very last physical thing that people will sell.
Yeah.
So I would say in about 10 years that'll vanish, if not before. Let me find my VHS tape somewhere. So, anything else there, Dave? Dave, come on, man. You must have had one thing happen in your week that is awesome that you would like to talk about because, hello, #Canadian man stuff.
Oh, fuck. I don't know. What was awesome this week?
Hint, you need to think of these things before the show.
Well, I didn't know this is Shane's thing. He springs shit on you, and then you're just like,
It's called getting serious, man. You've got to have, when you have a podcast, you have to be totally serious at all times. There has to be no foolishness. You have to make sure that you are prepared for all contingencies in this show.
Indeed, and that's why I opened with international beer units. Yes.
That's true. He kind of gave
was
his
pretty
thing.
damn awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Beer units.
Yeah.
I think I think our podcast should invent the International Beer Unit because there is nothing else that we will do for this
needs to be
podcast.
a running gag. So next week we'll talk about international beer units again. So be ready.
Okay.
I want you to prep for it and be serious, damn it! Because there is nothing more important than this podcast in my life.
That much is obvious. Yes.
Can't you tell how serious I am? And by the way, I still have beer, and Alan doesn't. I can't see my desk. I need to put my glass down without breaking it. There we go.
Okay, so the Dead Frog Brewery, Winter Beeracle. We approve.
Not Beersicle that I keep calling it Beersicle.
Beeracle, as in like miracle, but instead Beeracle. Get it? You know, it's a Christmas miracle, but Christmas isn't kosher. You can't say that. You have to say winter.
That's right. It has to be all about.
There's a war on Christmas, you know.
Actually, did you see those these stories that are saying until today is the day that they won't do anything Christmas related, which I'm kind of happy about.
Yeah, me too. I think the oppressed Christians.
Well, this episode is never going to make air. Be serious, man! This is actually getting into my eyeballs.
Okay, so getting back on track. Winter Beeracle.
That's
great.
Better. There we go.
There we go. Now you can see it. Winter Beeracle. Winter Ale from Dead Frog. There's the logo right there. It's really good.
Be serious, man!
I highly recommend you pick it up. But get 2 models because you'll get through one awfully quick.
I do recommend it as well.
More.
Give it a thumbs up. It is a decent beer, and I have more than Alan. I'm sorry we didn't have Locke here this week. We don't know where he is. He's in Ontario right now doing a bunch of work
Fighting
stuff.
off a rabid moose.
That's true. Those damn rabid mice. Meese.
Meese.
And I want to give a shout out to Dead Frog Brewery, who did actually comment because we did send out a tweet that said, "We're live in a few drinking Dead Frog Brewery's Winter Beeracle," and they retweeted us. So thank you very much, Dead Frog Brewery. They also liked the tweet, so that's a good thing. We've also had a bunch of other breweries just in the past, probably a couple of months, that have actually started to, respond to us, so that's great. Otherwise, Alan, when people are not looking for you in terms of the Crafty Boys, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on Twitter. I'm around. Just yell.
All right, Dave, what about you, sir? The guy with the coolest Twitter account in the world.
Oh, I don't know if I'd call it that, but yes, I do. I have an account, amazingly enough. I do. But you wouldn't find me... Okay. You wouldn't actually find me because the account is not my name. It is The Fool. That's the Phule. If you happen to be looking for the account.
And of course, if you want to find me, I am at Shane B. That's Shane B. E on the Twitters, and of course at changeworld.ca. And if you ever want to find anything about the Crafty Boys, I will point out that someone has created another account similar to ours called The Real Crafty Boys, and I gotta say, to them, they can just bite me. But anyway, basically, you can find us at The Crafty Boys on Twitter. And of course, you of course can go to thecraftyboys.ca, and very shortly, I hope not too long, our brand new YouTube channel, which we're currently just messing around with in the last couple of days, and of course on Facebook at facebook.com/thecraftyboys. So thank you so much for listening. Our 45 listeners that are watching today. And
it's much higher than that.
It's at least 110. So thank you again, and we strive to make your beer experience far better than ours because we're the guinea pigs.